When hinges creak in doorless chambers, and strange and frightening sounds echo through the halls, whenever candlelights flicker, where the air is deathly still, that is the time when ghosts are present, practicing their terror with ghoulish delight.
Howdy, folks.
Your attention, please.
Ladies and gentlemen,
To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
Hello, and welcome to Discoveryland. My name is Victoria, and I will be your guide on this adventure through yesterday, tomorrow, and fantasy.
welcome, foolish mortals, to the Haunted Mansion. I am your host, your ghost host.
On the outskirts of New Orleans Square stands an off-white mansion. A classic example of an antebellum home, the mansion is ornately dressed with jade wrought iron. Its inhabitants, all 999 of them, are not betrayed by the mansion's stoicism. In fact, one would never imagine what goes on just beyond the mansion's entry foyer. High above the mansion, a unique resident dwells in the dark attic. Amidst the antique chests and dusty portraits, this entity presents a shocking revelation to visitors. Perched just outside the attic on a dim terrace stands the Hatbox Ghost. As visitors pass him by in their doom buggies, they witness this phantom taunting them. His hair and skin are pale blue, with bony hands that balance a cane in his right and a hatbox in his left. His eyes are uneven, and amidst his full set of teeth is a single golden crown. Through his long jacket, his ribs are visible. Over his jacket is a large cloak, with a collar that appears to swallow his head. Atop his head sits a tall top hat. His body is shifting slowly in an awkward circular motion. As they glide by, the visitors see that the ghost's entire head disappears into a mist, only to reappear a moment later in the hatbox. As the spectre laughs, his head returns to his body.
Serpents and spiders, tail of a rat, call in the spirits wherever they're at.
So, who exactly is the Hatbox Ghost? Well, we don't really know. The theme of the attic scene in the Haunted Mansion has always suggested a Black Widow bride who has claimed the lives of multiple husbands. This is evident from the portraits of the bride with different men whose heads disappear from the portraits as riders glide by in their doom buggies. This indicates that the Hatbox Ghost may be one of the bride's husbands. Or could he be another suitor who, for reasons unknown, upon his death decided to hang around and stay in the attic? The story is not clearly spelt out, and Disneyland guests have always had to take the clues provided in the scene to come up with their own story. This is in stark contrast with much of what Disney does these days in more modern attractions. But I see this as a good thing, since there's not really a right or a wrong answer here, and we can use our imaginations to fill in the blanks and come to our own conclusions. No matter the specifics, the Hatbox Ghost is clearly someone who has lost his head, likely by falling in love with a murderous woman. But the story of the Hatbox Ghost is perhaps more interesting than the ghost himself. One of the greatest bits of Disneyland legend and lore, the Hatbox Ghost was not always in his current spot in the mansion's attic. In fact, for most of the Haunted Mansion's nearly 50-year history, the Hatbox Ghost wasn't there at all. Why is that? How could one of the most visibly prominent ghosts of the Haunted Mansion be so famous for 46 years without even being a part of this classic, world-renowned ride? Well, to comprehend that, we'd have to go back to the late 1960s. Mark Davis, animator, Imagineer, and Disney legend, who was one of Walt's 9 old men, was one of the creatives behind the development of the mansion. One of the characters Davis designed was the Hatbox Ghost. It was then up to another Disney Imagineer, effects designer Yale Gracie, to bring the Hatbox Ghost to life. Gracie was tasked with taking Davis's design and realizing the illusion of the Hatbox Ghost's head disappearing from his body, appearing in his hatbox, and then reappearing on his body. Photos of Gracie with an early version of his Hatbox Ghost can be seen online as he adjusts the figure. Such photos were reportedly solicited by Disney as promotion for the upcoming attraction. In fact, to coincide with the opening of the Haunted Mansion, Disney produced the story and song from the Haunted Mansion, which was a record album that described elements of the attraction. One such element was, of course, the Hatbox Ghost. But again, with such attention on the Hatbox Ghost in 1969, how can his absence from the attraction be explained? Was he even there to begin with? Disney Imagineer Tony Baxter had this to say.
In this very spot was a notorious Hatbox Ghost, and if you look at some of the publicity around that time, you'll see the great effects designer Yale Gracie posing with this ghost. And the way he stood was about like this, and he was kind of a mean guy, and his head disappeared and then appeared in a box that was for holding hats here. So this head came on and then this one went away. And evidently when they ran this at WDI or WED at the time, it worked great in a controlled room, but here inside of a ride where guests go by and see it from all different angles, evidently the illusion didn't meet expectations. Plus it was really kind of grisly.
This is important information. Quite simply, the Hatbox Ghost effect worked in a controlled environment up at the studios, but in the actual attraction, it just wasn't convincing. However, another thing that Baxter suggests is still problematic.
As a ride operator, I was given an opportunity to ride the ride about a week before opening. We were able to go around for 2 hours, and each time we'd get into the seance area, we'd yell across to other friends saying, "Did you see that? Next time look for this," and so forth. And I remember distinctly this is where it was, but before the ride opened, that figure was gone. And nobody knows the whereabouts, none of the molds exist, none of the characters exist. It completely vanished, so the whereabouts of the Hatbox Ghost is to this day a mystery.
Interesting. If in fact the Hatbox Ghost was removed from the attraction prior to its public opening on August 9, 1969, why are there so many claims that he was actually seen? Could it be that the publicity the character received early on has allowed for false memories to be created? Or could Tony Baxter, one of the most knowledgeable and legendary Imagineers, be incorrect? In 2011, the mystery of the Hatbox Ghost was finally resolved. On YouTube, the Disney History Institute published video from a home movie filmed during a day at Disneyland. It was dated August 1969. The video included a ride through the Haunted Mansion, and when the ride vehicle got to the attic, there was the infamous Hatbox Ghost in all his gory glory. Such a video, taken not by Disney nor its cast members, but rather a family enjoying a day at the park, confirmed once and for all that the Hatbox Ghost lived, or rather haunted, the attic of the Haunted Mansion at one time. Even if it wasn't for more than a matter of days, at least some people who claim to have seen the spectre in the mansion are indeed correct. I'll include a link to the video in the show notes, which I highly recommend checking out to see the footage firsthand. In April 2015, Disney Parks made an announcement that was met with much praise, excitement, and fanfare. After 46 years, the Hatbox Ghost would be materializing once again in the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland. That May, the notorious Hatbox Ghost returned to his rightful place in the Haunted Mansion. Instead of his original space, however, a new terrace was constructed immediately outside the attic to prominently showcase the returned Phantom. The figure itself, while somewhat different from the original, remained very true to the design and spirit of its predecessor. The effect of the head switching between the Hatbox Ghost's body and his hatbox was tremendously effective, as the technology used to create the 2015 version was state-of-the-art. 3 years on, the Hatbox Ghost remains a beloved and essential component of the Haunted Mansion, and Disneyland fans remain elated that he has permanently returned home amongst the other 998 happy haunts. The Hatbox Ghost. One of those wonderful, somewhat obscure things about the park that makes me love Disneyland so much more. It's the little things such as the Hatbox Ghost that give Disneyland its vibrant history, even in a place as dim as the Haunted Mansion. Even though the Hatbox Ghost is at long last back in his rightful place in the mansion, he will always be one of those bits of Disneyland that not only give the park its intrigue and mystery, but also make it extra special. I hope that you've enjoyed this trip into Discoveryland. Be sure to tune in next time for another adventure into the vibrant history of the Magic Kingdom. If you are listening through Apple Podcasts, remember to rate Discoveryland in order to increase its visibility. Please follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Discoveryland Show and on Twitter at Discoveryland VC.
Ladies and gentlemen, Disneyland has now ended its normal operating day. We hope you've enjoyed your visit to the Magic Kingdom and that you'll be back with us again soon.